CSNPhilly.com's Eagles insider Geoff Mosher set to jump in on a very busy, crazy day. A lot of conversation. And, Geoff, I'll tell you, it never seems to amaze me things that end up happening. But let's start with Jeremy Maclin, I guess, at the top of the conversation here. He did not get tagged today. Probably not a huge surprise, but now what are the scenarios for Maclin moving forward? Because I guess a lot of people thought that something might be done, and we're still don't have something done for him. He's not going to be franchised, which means anybody can go get him now.
Right. Well, not yet. In 8 days, anybody can go next
10th,
Monday when free agency starts. So Eagles didn't tag him, so that essentially gives them between now and next Monday to still reach an agreement with Jeremy to keep him from becoming a free agent. Or they can let him go into free agency, let him test the market, and take that risk that they can still bring him back and meet whatever kind of offers that Jeremy is going to get on the open market. With Demaryius Thomas and Dez Bryant both getting the franchise tag, you can argue that Jeremy Maclin is the number one receiver on the open market if he gets there. And that means, in general, whether he's number one, number two, or number five, he's going to get good offers. There's money out there. The cap is up. And there's a lot of teams that want receivers. And one that really stands out to me is Kansas City. Andy Reid drafted Jeremy Maclin 6 years ago in the first round, and he just won 9 games, amazingly, without having any of his wide receivers catch touchdown passes. So there's teams with money to spend. I think a big reason that Maclin hadn't signed by now, Mike, is because Dez Bryant is represented by the same agent, and there was no way Tom Condon was going to let Jeremy Maclin sign a team-friendly deal with the Eagles before Dez Bryant's situation was taken care of, because he doesn't want Jeremy Maclin to set a lower market for wide receivers. So now that Dez is wearing the tag, and same with Demaryius Thomas, you can see the market will start to settle. And obviously we'll get a clearer picture of what Maclin is worth going forward.
All right, Geoff. So obviously now, March the 10th, anybody can make an offer. Is there any evidence to suggest that some team is going to come in here? You mentioned Kansas City, but now that he's the number one receiver, does that scare you to think that, you know what, there's going to be some rogue team out here that just says we need to do something, and he's our guy. He's the best. As you just said, he's the best receiver possibly on the market. If you like him better than Cobb, we're going to throw $11 million a year at you. Where's the ceiling for Philadelphia, do you think?
I don't know. I would love to know their walkaway number. I really don't know what it is. They obviously were not willing to pay him $13 million this year under a franchise tag. Is 11 or 12 too high for them also? Will he get that somewhere else? I think you hit it on the head, where there's always a team in free agency that is really desperate, that has the money, that really wants a guy and is willing to outbid the rest. And that's the risk that the Eagles face when they let Jeremy Maclin go into the open market. Will they want to match any type of offer that Jeremy Maclin gets? I don't know. I'm sure they have a number. I'm sure it's being discussed right now, because now we know he's not going to get the franchise tag. I still think there's a good chance that Jeremy comes back, because Jeremy has said that he wants to be back and the Eagles want him back, and he has never been one to be a liar or misleading throughout his Eagles career. So it does sound like the interest is there. Maybe they just needed the market to be set, a number that seems right. Obviously, the Eagles were probably trying to sign him for a team-friendly deal, not just this offseason, but even going back to last offseason, which is why he signed a 1-year deal instead of a 5-year deal.
Geoff, if I'm reading your stuff right from before, are you a little surprised that he did not get the franchise tag today?
No, I mean, I think maybe a couple of weeks ago when I was thinking about it, I thought that they would put the franchise tag on him as a vehicle to kind of hold him from hitting the open market while they tried to negotiate a better long-term deal. But then when I thought about it in the last few days, I thought there's no way they would, because if I'm Jeremy Maclin, I do sign that franchise tag immediately, and I make $13 million this year. I made $5 million last year. Yeah, I don't get that long-term security, even though, and that's worrisome because I've had all these injuries. But I just guaranteed myself $18 million over 2 years. That's a really good deal. And on top of that, I now set my price at 2016 if the Eagles want to resign me at $15.5 million, because in order to keep Maclin again on the if they were to franchise him again in year 2, and this is the deal that the Lions had to deal with Sue, why they didn't tag him, is you have to pay him 20% more than the previous year's tag. So if this year's tag is $13 million, 20% more around that is now $15.5. So that becomes a starting number for negotiations in 2016. And there's no way the Eagles are going to pay him $15.5 in the first year of the deal, because the numbers always go up; they don't go down. So it would have been basically putting the franchise tag would have only kept him here for 1 year, and they would like him to keep him here for more than that.
Interesting. Geoff Mosher, CSNPhilly.com, Mosher Monday here, 97.3 ESPN. So Maclin not tagged. He is now a free agent, and now it's a fair game. Anybody can pretty much approach him once free agency opens in 8 days from now. There was really no other candidate on this Eagles team, but now obviously you open some things up. Let's go and take a look at Trent Cole, a guy who wasn't a franchise possibility. However, he's another guy who possibly could be doing something with the contract. Do you think that Cole is going to take a pay cut to remain here? Do the Eagles want him to come back, but is only at a reduced rate?
I can tell you that I know that there is mutual interest in doing a restructure that is essentially a pay cut for Trent Cole. There is interest on both sides. The talks have already began. They began a couple of days ago. They are ongoing. Obviously, whenever you deal with a situation like this, it's always about, if the player has already conceded that he'll take a pay cut, it now becomes, well, how much of a pay cut? And is it, I'm taking a pay cut to still be a starter, or am I taking a pay cut that's going to put me in a backup role that I'm not happy with? So Trent has made it clear that he wants to be here, wants to retire an Eagle. He knows he's not going to be playing 90% of the snaps anymore, because he wasn't playing that many snaps last year. He was splitting sharing a lot of them with Brandon Graham. So I think Trent right now is evaluating his options. He's hearing the pitch. He's mulling it, and I expect a decision on him, if not even today, pretty soon, next few days, on whether or not he's taking that pay cut.
How about the deal today then, Brad Jones? Because I think that's kind of interesting, because he was a guy that was drafted as a pass rusher. He moved inside with the Packers. Now he has not been an effective player as an inside backer. Do the Eagles look at him as an inside backer, more of a pass rusher, or as a guy who can play both, and that's why they like him, because of his versatility?
Right. He did say on the conference call today that he spoke mostly with Rick Mintler, who's the inside linebackers coach. But as you mentioned, he has versatility. Chip likes his guys who can play inside and outside. He does have 10 career sacks, so he can be a pass rusher. I mean, he is a vintage Chip Kelly signing. He's really a backup who's not necessarily great at anything, but good at a lot of things, including special teams. He was impressed by the program that they had here, the special teams that they had here. And, Casey Matthews is probably he's headed for free agency. I doubt he's coming back. Emmanuel Acho did okay. There were times he looked serviceable, but if there's anything that we learned about the Eagles last year, it's that they had a lot of question marks at inside linebacker depth. Obviously they had to move Marcus Smith over there, and they now have question marks at inside linebacker starting with DeMeco Ryans. I mean, is he coming back? Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to have that 6.9 cap figure? Are they going to ask him to take a pay cut or just flat out release him? We have no idea, but we do know that the Eagles needed to address inside linebacker. They did it with Brad Jones, and I'm not sure. I wouldn't be certain that they're done. I know that there is some free agent inside linebackers that they were sniffing around at the combine, and we'll see if that comes into fruition. I might be dropping some names later this week in a story, so keep an eye out.
All right, that would be at CSNPhilly.com. Geoff, how much do you know about this Pat Yasinkas blog over at ESPN.com, NFL Nation, with this conversation that the Eagles and the Buccaneers had some conversation?
You are telling. This is the first I've heard of it. Whatever you're telling.
Oh, okay,
so,
all right. Well,
I know who Pat Yasinkas is. I know about his blog. I didn't know that there was a post about it, though.
Well, in his blog today, he says, until my phone started ringing, 2 different members of the Philadelphia media called me to say there were rumblings that a trade was imminent to send Nick Foles, LaShawn McCoy, and 3 first-round picks to the Buccaneers for the number 1 pick in the draft. Now, he said he talked to people in the Tampa organization, and they said untrue. Philadelphia people have said no, not true. He said scrap that rumor, ... for now. So obviously, when you hear "for now" means I wouldn't be surprised if these two guys, something's going. Would it surprise you if the Eagles and the Buccaneers if the Eagles got themselves up to number 1?
It's like I'm surprised, but I wouldn't be surprised, only because obviously we know the Eagles want to get Mariota. But as far as I know, Mike, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, there has never been a team in the history of the NFL draft that traded up to number 1. I believe that's correct. There have been guys who have been taken number 1, like Eli and John Elway, right, who were eventually traded afterward. But I don't think a team has ever traded up to number 1. But leave it to Chip to do something historic, right? I mean, we know he wants Mariota that badly. I would assume 3 first-round picks, Foles and McCoy would get a deal done. Because my gosh, that is quite a bounty. I mean, you're getting an all-pro running back, 3 first-round picks, and then you're also just throw in Nick Foles there.
Yeah.
So,
see, it's not clear.
I'll believe it when I see it.
It's not clear where he heard those particulars. He just says the rumors started to fly on Friday. He started to make some calls, and that was the deal that this is over at ESPN.com's NFL Nation. He said the Eagles were about to trade Nick Foles, LaShawn McCoy. It sounded believable, so I called someone within the Tampa Bay organization. Now, he did say that he reached out to people in the Philadelphia media, and they said that a deal was imminent. So, I mean...
In the Philadelphia media? So if that was true, wouldn't someone in the Philadelphia media have reported it?
That's why I'm amazed that I'm only seeing it here, and I'm wondering, he says, my friends in the Philadelphia media poked around some more with their Eagles sources. They got the same response I did. No trade was imminent, and no one would say if there was even any discussions between the two teams. So,
one thing I can say, Mike, on that is that, and we go through this every year.
Sure.
It happens to be the Eagles involved with it. I mean, people put things out there to get that sentiment out there for their own advantages. In this case, you could easily say Tampa Bay would leak that kind of information to make that first number 1 overall pick more attractive for other people to want to trade into. Although a report like that almost kind of blows it a bit because nobody's given up 3 first-round picks, an all-pro player, and a Pro Bowl MVP quarterback to get Marcus Mariota.
Well, how about that then? That is another avenue to this. If the Eagles traded to number 1, would they entertain the thought of taking Winston?
I can't see it, but I've been blindsided by things the Eagles have done in the past. I never put the kibosh on anything, Mike. So, I mean, again, do I see it? No, I don't think it's going to be happening, and that sounds like way too much to give up for even Chip Kelly to give up. But, I always say where there's smoke, there's fire, right? I remember when we were talking around this time last year about the Eagles are going to get rid of Deshaun Jackson.
Yep.
People, all the hate mail and things that I was getting, and I'm sure you were too. So it seemed so bizarre, and there would be no reason to do it, but then it happened, right? So I can't sit here and tell you definitively no. I can sit here and say, okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish up.
I was just going to make a point about trading Foles. Now, people who think that Foles would be a sure in for a deal for Mariota or to get up there, I would caution against that because it's very difficult for another team to trade for a quarterback going into the last year of his deal. It puts him in a really bad negotiating leverage viewpoint because if you trade for Nick Foles, if you give up a lot, a high pick to get him, then the agent for Nick Foles is going to do everything he can to get top dollar or walk, because if he walks, it makes the organization who traded for him look bad because you traded a high pick for this QB, and then you let him walk. You really look terrible in the end. So I think that the people who think that Foles is definitely going to be involved in a trade that would get the Eagles up to get a quarterback would have to rethink that.
Well, and the same reason why I was saying earlier that now's the time if you're Philly, you try to trade Foles, because if you don't believe he's the guy, you might as well try to get something for him rather than let him walk if you, in fact, don't believe that he's your guy. And I think most of the signs point that Kelly's saying it's almost like Michael Carter-Williams. He's good. We're not saying he's not, but he can only get us this far. I think Kelly's saying, look, I won 10 games with this guy, but that's as far as this guy's going to get us. If you want to win the Super Bowl, I got to do something different at that position.
Yeah, it's hard to read the tea leaves on what Chip says. I mean, nobody knows. I spoke to someone pretty close to Nick Foles who told me he has no idea what Chip Kelly's thinking. So, I mean, you would think that it's amazing. It's really quite interesting the way Chip is so secretive.
What I wanted to ask you was, and you kind of brought it up a little bit with Foles, that particular deal, Foles, McCoy, and 3 picks, do you think that is crippling? I mean, is that, some people would say, oh my gosh, how do you give up 3 picks plus McCoy? To me, Foles is insignificant because you're taking a quarterback to replace him. Yeah. So you're saying, look, I don't believe in this guy. I want a different guy. But McCoy and the 3 picks,
I think it's absurd.
You think giving that?
I think it's absurd. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to work. I just think it's absurd. I think the best teams build through the draft, and if you give away that many first-round picks and a Pro Bowl, I mean, I could understand getting rid of Shady. If you're getting Mariota, you're downgrading at running back anyway because you're running the read option, and you want those straight-line zone runners anyway, not the guys who dance. So I can get that. But, I mean, giving up 3 first-round picks, a pretty good quarterback, and a all-pro running back for a guy who's never thrown a pass in the NFL and who has as many question marks as Mariota does, yeah, I think that's absurd.
Well, but I guess, though, if you're getting Mariota, aren't you anticipating that you are going to take a step in the right direction instead of a step back, meaning your picks are going to be in the lower half of the first round?
What if Mariota breaks his leg in his first game?
Well, these things are right. These things, much like the like I said earlier, the Redskins won that deal initially until Griffin got hurt. They went to the playoffs. They won the division. St. Louis hasn't done squat.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to, because they had one good year until he got hurt. But, I mean, Griffin, even when he's not hurt, he's been regressing. And he did play a last-place schedule that year, played an awful Eagles team twice. I mean, everything aligned correctly for the Redskins that year. And it's hard to say they won it, even if Griffin was a good quarterback, because look how many picks the Rams have an excellent defense. They're gonna have won that trade by far, no matter how good RG3 is, because they're really building something over there.
They're getting better. There's no question about it. But if RG3, he got hurt, just like you said. Well, what if he gets hurt? Well, if RG3 didn't get hurt, would he have regressed? Would Shanahan have been fired? Now he's got a new coach. He got hurt. So I think Griffin's path has really taken a wild turn from where he was 2 years ago when he wins the division and goes to the playoffs. Now, on the flip side, you look at a guy, now I'm not saying Mariota is Andrew Luck by any stretch of the imagination, but he could be the Eagles version of Andrew Luck, meaning the perfect fit for what you do. If you end up getting that guy, that trade doesn't look like I gave up too much then.
Right. It's very improbable that he'll become the next Andrew Luck. He might become a really good quarterback, but even look at Andrew Luck. Andrew Luck is having trouble winning the playoffs because they can't put a defense around him. Now, they didn't have to give up anything to get him. They just finished in last place and got the number 1 overall pick. But,
well, they did give up Peyton Manning.
There's only so much one man can do is my point.
Well, look,
there's only so much one man can do.
That's the thing with Luck, though. They went from 1 win to 11. Now, they've won 11 games all 3 years he's been there. The first year, they went to the playoffs. They lost. They went to the playoffs the second year, won 1 game, and then went out. This year, they won 2 playoff games. They went to the AFC Championship game this year. If 3 years down the road, Mariota takes you to the NFC Championship game, didn't you win that deal?
That's a big if.
There's no question
if he goes to the NFC Championship game, if he goes to the NFC Championship, no. He's got to win a Super Bowl. This town, if you're going to give up that much, you've got to win it all.
Right. Right. I'm just saying, if by the third year, you're in the NFC Championship game, I think you've made a step in the right direction. That your hope is boom.
I mean, these things can work. There's no doubt that they can work, but the evidence suggests that they're more likely not to work.
Gotcha.
And you know how this town is. If it doesn't work, everyone's going to judge it in the vacuum and call Chip Kelly the stupidest guy in the world.
But that's why the Eagles have almost become the Sixers in a different way, in that the only victory is a Super Bowl, because winning the division and making the playoffs with 10 wins is, okay, we've seen this act before. And I think Chip Kelly's saying that's Nick Foles' act. He's going to win you 10 games. We're going to get to the playoffs. We might even win the division, but we're not going to win the Super Bowl. The only way, to me, he has so much power now. What's the difference? He can swing it any way he wants, because what happened? He got fired as the personnel director. He's going to be a coach no matter what. Somewhere else.
You're right. I mean, that's why some people have a little bit of issue with all the power he got, because a lot of people think that he's going to give up everything to get Mariota, and if he does, he's not going to win it all, and then if he doesn't win it all, he's out of here in a few years, or if he doesn't even get Mariota, he's out of here in a few years.
So what is your take then on Roseman's comments at the MIT symposium this weekend, basically saying, I think it's an idiotic move to trade everybody to go up in the draft? I mean, a virtual complete diss at all of the fodder that's out there.
I take it as a typical pre-draft smokescreen or just, hollow words that could mean something and could not mean something. It's and everybody is surmising the same thing. Well, Howie, it doesn't matter what you think. It ain't really your call anyway.
I could see Kelly and Roseman sitting in the new Roseman office together, just having a great laugh over all this about everybody speculating on how everybody's reading into. I thought the timing. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. This was asked by just like a student. This isn't like a media member asking. These are like students that are asking these questions, right? Correct, because clearly, Mike, no media member is going to be speaking to someone in the Eagles front office anytime soon. They're not talking. But is there a date that is set? Is there any date set for Kelly to talk?
Yes, later this month at the owners' meeting, March 24th. March 20. I think it's 25th, which is the Wednesday. They do the coaches' breakfast. They do AFC coaches on Tuesday and NFC coaches on Wednesday, where they have an hour. That will be the Chip Kelly hour. You remember last year it was Chip Kelly talking nothing about Deshaun Jackson. This year it'll be Chip Kelly on a whole variety of topics. And then also, Mike, every team is required to have someone from the organization speak to do a pre-draft, like roundtable. It's always been Howie Roseman in the past. But this year I'm told it will be Ed Manowitz. So that'll be our first shot. Talk to Ed, and that's usually about the week leading up to the draft. So now we're talking about late April, I believe. That'll happen.
All right, Geoff Mosher, CSNPhilly.com. Any free agent thoughts while we have you here a week before free agency opens? Any free agent nuggets here for the listeners out there?
Yeah, well, let's start with Brandon Graham. The door isn't closed. I'm told that they're going to meet again. The Eagles and Brandon Graham are going to meet in a few days and try to hash it out one more time before he hits the market. And, hey, maybe now that numbers and guys are tagged like Justin Houston and JPP and all that, maybe there's a chance that they can get this done. I'm not totally optimistic, but there is a chance. I think it's very weird, though, that they're trying to also bring back Trent Cole on a pay cut, because I was told Trent thinks he's coming back. He's going to take a pay cut to start. So if they're also bringing Brandon Graham back, I'm wondering what story they're telling each guy. I guess, that's a stay tuned for you there on that. I know what I've been told was they will be aggressive in free agency. They're expected to be. People who have met with them at the Combine expect them to be aggressive, expect them to make a run at Byron Maxwell, but also that they're looking at backup corners. It seems like they want to address the cornerback position from top to bottom because, A, they need depth at outside corner. Brad Fletcher is not coming back. And B, if they sign Byron Maxwell and pay him a lot of money, there's a good chance Kerry Williams is going to have to be either taking a pay cut or leaving as a cap casualty. And C, they don't envision and they will not put Brandon Boykin on the outside. So it doesn't look like Boykin's going to be past his fourth year this coming year. That's probably going to be his last year. So they need to add some depth there at cornerback also. Nolan Carroll is not a guy that they envision as a starter. So look around when you're looking at cornerbacks. Don't just look at the Byron Maxwells of the world. Look at some guys who are out there who have kind of produced. There aren't the big names, but are back, but can have started somewhere and could come in and be a backup / starter here if needed, depending on what it is. And as I mentioned, inside linebacker is an area that I also inside / outside versatility that I think that I know they've looked into at the Combine and are likely to address.
All right, excellent stuff, Geoff Mosher, and throughout the week, check out CSNPhilly.com. As Mosher said, he'll be adding some more nuggets out there for you guys.